She desperately needed someone formidable enough to intimidate her volatile ex-boyfriend. So, settling onto a stranger's lap, she whispered, "Please, help me." The stranger? Chicago's most formidable mafia boss. His immediate retort, "Then you're leaving with me tonight." The wine glass splintered against the wall, just a mere 6 inches from Mara's head. Yet, she remained unflustered. Not anymore, she thought. 3 years entangled with Daniel Chen had ingrained in her that flinching only fueled his rage, empowering him. So she sat perfectly still in the plush burgundy booth of Aurelio's, the pinnacle of downtown Chicago's Italian dining, watching the crimson wine bleed down the cream wallpaper like an eerie hemorrhage. "You think you're superior now?" Daniel's voice was a low, venomous hiss, a quiet menace far more unnerving than a shout. "You believe because you landed that paltry office job, you can simply ignore my calls?" Around them, conversations had withered. Crystal clinked awkwardly against porcelain. A diamond-clad woman at a nearby table had her phone poised, undoubtedly relaying the unfolding drama to her friends. The maitre d' approached, his face a mask of professional solicitude barely concealing his fervent wish for their immediate disappearance. Mara's hands quivered in her lap. How utterly naive she had been. Foolish to consent to this reunion dinner. Foolish to imagine Daniel had changed after 6 months of radio silence. Foolish to harbor any hope. He had merely sought closure. Yet, he never truly desired closure. He craved absolute control. "Daniel, please," she began. "Please what?" He lunged across the table, his breath sharp with whiskey. "You blocked me. You blocked my number as if I were insignificant. As if we were nothing." His hand shot out, seizing her wrist with a grip tight enough to leave a bruise. "You don't just get to walk away from me, Mara." It was then that she saw him. 3 tables away, facing her direction, sat a man who seemed utterly out of place amidst the nervous, affluent crowd of Aurelio's. He belonged somewhere far darker, distinctly more perilous. He was alone, which struck her as the first anomaly. Men of his caliber, and even without knowing his name, Mara sensed his immense presence never dined unaccompanied. They commanded an entourage, guards, associates. Yet, he sat there in a black suit, a garment likely valued more than her car, engrossed in something on his phone with the focused serenity of a predator. He appeared to be in his late 30s, with dark swept-back hair, olive skin, and a jawline that seemed hewn from granite. A delicate scar traced through his left eyebrow, a pale contrast against his tanned complexion. As if sensing her scrutiny, his eyes lifted. They were dark, not brown, but something profoundly deeper, like black coffee consumed at midnight. And in precisely 2 seconds, they assessed her predicament. Daniel's grip tightened on her wrist, yanking her attention back. "Are you even listening to me? Who are you gawking at?" The maitre d' intervened. "Sir, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you too." "Mind your own business," Daniel snarled without even glancing at him. Something within Mara finally snapped. Not the violent fracture of rage, but the clean, decisive cut of a resolution. For 3 long years, she had lived in fear. 3 years of Daniel gaslighting her, manipulating her, isolating her from friends who had tried desperately to warn her. 3 years of watching herself erode, piece by agonizing piece. Not tonight. She rose so abruptly that her chair scraped backward. Daniel's hand slipped from her wrist, his expression morphing into confusion. The entire restaurant watched now. Good. Let them witness it. Mara stopped thinking. Thinking had been her prison. She strode across the restaurant floor in an understated black dress and discount heels, past tables of stunned diners, past the maitre d', whose jaw had dropped in disbelief, directly to the table where the dangerous man sat. He watched her approach with those inscrutable dark eyes, his phone now forgotten on the pristine white tablecloth. Mara sought no permission. She exhibited no hesitation. She walked straight to him and, with a terrifying resolve, sat down on his lap. His body went rigid beneath her. He was solid muscle, she dimly registered. Warm, undeniably real. Her heart pounded so fiercely she feared she might faint. She leaned her face close to his ear, her voice a bare whisper, trembling with adrenaline, terror, and a desperate, fragile hope. "Please, just help me." For one agonizing second, nothing happened. She had made a catastrophic error. This man would surely cast her aside, humiliate her, leave her even more exposed than before. Then his arm encircled her waist, slowly, possessively. Its weight was simultaneously terrifying and grounding. He leaned in, his lips almost brushing her ear, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through her entire being. "Then you'll leave with me tonight." It wasn't a question. It wasn't even a suggestion. It was a covenant, sealed in her desperation and borrowed courage. Mara pulled back just enough to meet his gaze. Up close, his eyes were even more intense, ancient, knowing, deeply dangerous. But there was something else there, too. A flicker of curiosity. Perhaps even a nascent respect. She nodded. A single small dip of her chin. The man's gaze lifted past her, and his entire demeanor underwent a profound shift. The curiosity vanished, replaced by something frigid and absolute. The ambient temperature in the room seemed to plummet. "Is there a problem?" His voice carried across the restaurant, simultaneously casual and lethal. Mara didn't need to turn to know Daniel was standing there. She could feel his fury radiating, a palpable heat against her back. "Who the hell do you think you are?" Daniel's voice trembled now, whether from anger or fear she couldn't discern. "Mara, get up now." The arm around her waist tightened fractionally. "The lady's perfectly fine where she is." The man's voice was calm, almost bored, yet beneath it lay the sharp edge of a blade. "You should leave." "Do you know who I don't care." 3 words delivered with the crushing weight of absolute truth. "Leave now." The silence that followed was deafening. Mara finally turned her head to see Daniel's face, flushed, contorted with impotent rage, and something she had never witnessed before: fear. Daniel's eyes darted between them, his fists clenched. For a fleeting moment, she thought he might actually throw a punch. Then his gaze snagged on something, perhaps the collective stare of the other diners, perhaps the 2 men in dark suits who had mysteriously materialized near the entrance, or perhaps simply the chilling certainty in the dangerous man's eyes. He recoiled. "You're going to regret this, Mara, both of you." Then he spun around and stormed toward the exit, shoving past a waiter hard enough to send a tray clattering. The restaurant remained frozen. Phones were definitely out now. Camera flashes sparked in her peripheral vision. Mara realized she was still perched on a stranger's lap, his arm still encircling her waist. She ought to move. She ought to apologize. Explain. Just run. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. Mara, her voice emerged steadier than she anticipated. "Mara Santos." "Mara Santos," he repeated, as if etching it into his memory. "I'm Vittorio Romano." The name struck her like a blast of ice water. Everyone in Chicago knew that name, even if they feigned ignorance. The Romano family wasn't merely affluent, they were meticulously connected, impossibly powerful. The kind of power that didn't stem from tech stocks or real estate, but from unwavering loyalty, pervasive fear, and the indelible stain of blood. She had just sat on a mafia boss's lap. "Oh, God," she whispered. "Too late for prayers," Vittorio said, a dark amusement coloring his voice. "You made your choice. Now we see where it leads." His hand moved to hers, his thumb gently brushing across the red marks Daniel's grip had left on her wrist. Something in his expression shifted, hardened. "My car's outside," he said, releasing her waist so she could stand. "You're coming with me." It should have sounded like a threat. Somehow, it resonated like a promise. Mara rose on trembling legs, acutely aware that everything, absolutely everything, had just irrevocably changed. Mara's phone registered 63 notifications when she awoke. She stared at the ceiling of her cramped studio apartment, her body still buzzing with residual adrenaline from the previous night. Vittorio Romano's driver had deposited her at 11 p.m. without a single word, waiting until she was securely inside. She had triple-locked her door and collapsed into bed, fully clothed. Now, morning light filtered weakly through her thin curtains, and reality was crashing down with brutal force. She grabbed her phone, text messages from numbers she didn't recognize, Instagram requests from gossip accounts, 3 urgent voicemails from her concerned roommate-turned-friend, Jackie, who had relocated to Boston last year. The worst, however, was the photograph. It was ubiquitous. TMZ, Chicago social scene blogs, even a local news aggregator. The image was remarkably clear, her seated on Vittorio Romano's lap, his arm protectively around her waist, both of them looking off-camera, presumably at Daniel. The caption blared, "Mystery woman gets cozy with Chicago's most dangerous bachelor. Who is she?" "Oh no, 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 no," Mara breathed, pressing her palms against her eyes. She had work in an hour. Kensington & Associates, the corporate law firm where she had served as a receptionist for 3 months. It was mundane, underpaid, and utterly unremarkable, precisely what she had needed after escaping Daniel's chaotic orbit. Had needed, past tense. She showered swiftly, dressed in her usual work attire, gray slacks, white blouse, minimal makeup, and attempted to project the image of plain Mara Santos, the inconspicuous office assistant. Not the woman who had created such a public spectacle with a mafia boss. The moment she stepped into the office, she knew pretending was futile. Conversations ceased. Eyes trailed her every move. Kelly from accounting actually gasped. Mara's supervisor, Patricia, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, intercepted her at the reception desk. "My office now." Mara's stomach plummeted. She'd only been there 3 months. She desperately needed this job. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Patricia closed her office door and turned, her expression unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. "So, Vittorio Romano, it's not what it looks like." "Honey, I couldn't care less what it looks like," Patricia said, perching on the edge of her desk. "But you need to understand that everyone is talking about it, partners included. Some find it thrilling, others," she paused thoughtfully, "others are concerned about the kind of attention you might draw to the firm." "I'm not," she emphasized. "We're not. It was just one moment." "A blunder, was it?" Patricia's gaze was sharp, evidenced by the presence of 3 black SUVs currently flanking the curb outside. Mara's blood ran cold. Darting to the window, she confirmed their presence. 3 black Escalades, their tinted windows reflecting the morning sun like dark mirrors. As she watched, the center vehicle's door opened, and out stepped Vittorio Romano. In the harsh daylight, he appeared different, sharper, undeniably real. He wore a charcoal suit without a tie, his dark hair impeccably styled. Immediately, 2 men in black suits flanked him, their eyes systematically sweeping the street with practiced precision. "I think," Patricia began, her voice cautious, "you should go see what he wants." Mara's hands trembled once more. "I could lose my job?" "You could lose far more than just your job if you disregard a man like him," Patricia responded, her tone softening. "Go. I'll cover for you." The descent in the elevator felt like plunging into icy depths. By the time Mara pushed through the building's glass doors, a small cluster of onlookers had already formed, maintaining a respectful distance. Office workers on their coffee breaks, a handful of audacious photographers. Vittorio spotted her immediately. His expression remained unchanged, yet something in his posture subtly shifted, almost relaxing. "Miss Santos?" His voice carried just enough to be audible, formal, and courteous. "May I have a moment?" Every instinct screamed at her to flee. Instead, she advanced, stopping a few feet away. "I'm at work." "I know." He gestured toward the building behind her. "Kensington & Associates. You've been here 3 months. Before that, you worked at Stella's Diner in Lincoln Park for 2 years. The casual disclosure of such personal details sent a chill down her spine. "Have you been investigating me?" "It's called due diligence." He moved closer, lowering his voice until only she could hear. "Your ex-boyfriend spent last night making calls, furious calls to individuals who pay attention when frightened men offer information." Mara's mouth went dry. "What individuals?" "Rival families, minor operators seeking to establish their reputations." Vittorio's dark eyes locked onto hers. "Daniel told them you're my vulnerability. That harming you would hurt me, but I'm not. We're not. It doesn't matter what we are. It only matters what they believe." His jaw tightened. "You sat on my lap in front of 50 witnesses and a dozen cameras. In my world, that's a declaration." The morning air suddenly felt too thin. "This is preposterous. I simply needed assistance escaping from him. And I provided it. Now there are repercussions." He retrieved something from his pocket, A business card with only a phone number? I'm offering you protection, a place to stay until this situation subsides. No. The word emerged with more force than she intended. I'm not escaping from one domineering man, only to fall into the arms of another. A flicker crossed Vittorio's face. Surprise, perhaps, or respect. I'm not Daniel, he stated quietly. You're worse. He could ruin my life. You could end it. Vittorio was silent for a long moment. Around them, phones were unmistakably recording. Tomorrow's gossip cycle, no doubt. You're right, he finally conceded. I could, but I won't. He extended the card. Take it anyway. You don't have to use it. But if something happens, nothing's going to happen. Mara didn't take the card. I appreciate what you did last night, truly, but I'm finished with men who believe they know what's best for me. She turned and walked back toward the building, her heart pounding so fiercely she feared everyone could hear it. Mara, she paused but didn't turn around. Your apartment building lacks security cameras on the back entrance. Just so you know, Vittorio called out. The words sent an icy shiver down her spine. Was it a threat? A warning? She looked back. Vittorio was already entering his SUV, his guards following suit. The vehicle smoothly departed, vanishing into the bustling Chicago traffic. The crowd dispersed, disappointed that the spectacle had concluded. Mara re-entered the building, where Patricia's worried face greeted her in the lobby. Are you okay? Yeah. Mara's voice sounded distant, even to herself. Yeah, She was decidedly not fine. That night, after a shift that felt like swimming through molasses, with everyone staring but no one asking, Mara boarded the bus home. The card Vittorio had attempted to give her was still in his pocket, but his words resonated in her mind. Her apartment building was old, with 6 units and questionable plumbing. The landlord was notoriously stingy. No security cameras, just as Vittorio had stated, a detail she had never before considered. She ascended the stairs to her 3rd-floor unit, keys already in hand. That's when she saw him. A man stood at the far end of the hallway, partially obscured by the shadows near the stairwell exit. Baseball cap, dark jacket. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there. But there was something unsettling about his absolute stillness. When he noticed her looking, he smiled. Then he turned and descended the stairs, his footsteps echoing ominously. Mara's hands trembled so violently that she dropped her keys. She snatched them up, fumbled with her locks, burst inside, and bolted the door shut. Leaning against the door, breathing heavily, her phone was in her hand before she consciously decided to reach for it. She had no business card, no number, but she had Google. Her fingers typed, Vittorio Romano contact, yielding nothing useful, only news articles, speculation, photos from last night. She tried again. Romano family, Chicago. An address appeared, Romano's Fine Imports, a warehouse in the industrial district. Mara stared at it. She was probably overreacting. The man in the hall was likely just an unfamiliar neighbor. Daniel was all talk. Vittorio was merely trying to scare her into accepting his assistance. Probably. She looked at her door, 1 chain lock, 2 deadbolts that barely functioned. Then she looked at the address on her phone. Damn it, she whispered. Maybe Vittorio had been right after all. Mara didn't sleep that night. She sat on her couch with all the lights illuminated, a kitchen knife resting on the cushion beside her, flinching at every sound, the radiator clinking, a car alarm 3 blocks away, footsteps in the hallway that passed her door and continued onward. By 6 a.m., she had convinced herself she was paranoid, exhausted and paranoid. She had to go to work. She had to maintain normalcy. That's what you did when your life was unraveling. You pretended it wasn't. The morning was overcast, threatening rain. Mara pulled on her coat and grabbed her bag, checking the hallway before stepping out. Empty. The man from last night was gone. See? Paranoid. She had descended 2 flights of stairs when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You should have taken his offer. Her blood turned to ice. Another message. Too late now. Mara's fingers fumbled with her phone, attempting to dial 911 when she heard it. Footsteps on the stairs below, heavy multiple sets ascending rapidly. She spun and ran back up, her heels clattering loudly on the concrete steps. Her apartment. She just needed to get back to her apartment. 3rd floor. She burst through the stairwell door into the hallway. They were waiting. 3 men, perhaps in their early 20s, tattoos snaking up their necks. One wore a Saints jersey. Another had a scar bisecting his lip. The third was massive, with arms like tree trunks. "There she is," the one in the Saints jersey said, with a grin that made her skin crawl. "Romano's girl." "I'm not." Mara backed toward the stairwell, but she heard footsteps behind her. The men from below had caught up. She was trapped. "Word is you're real special to him," the scarred-lipped man said, moving closer. "Sat right on his lap in front of everybody. Bold move." "That was a mistake. I don't even know him." "Sure you don't," the massive one chuckled, cracking his knuckles. "That's why he showed up at your work this morning. That's why his boys have been circling the stump all day." His boys. Mara's mind raced. Had Vittorio posted guards? She hadn't seen anyone. "See, our boss is real interested in sending Romano a message," the Saints jersey continued. "And you're going to be that message, sweetheart." Scarred Lip grabbed her arm. His grip was iron, nothing like Daniel's angry squeezes. This was professional violence, cold and practiced. "Let go of me." Mara drove her knee up, aiming for his groin. She missed, hitting his thigh, but it made him grunt and loosen his grip enough for her to yank free. She ran, not toward her apartment, that was a dead end, but toward the main stairwell, the one that led to the lobby. If she could get to the street, to people, to witnesses. A hand caught the back of her coat and hauled her backward. She hit the wall hard, stars exploding behind her eyes. "Feisty!" the massive one laughed. "Romano likes them feisty, huh?" Mara screamed, loud, primal, the kind of scream that stemmed from 3 years of swallowing her voice with Daniel. 3 years of being afraid. "Shut her up!" The stairwell door exploded open. 2 men in dark suits moved like they had been trained for this exact moment. The first one drove his fist into Scarred Lip's face with a sickening crunch. The second caught Saints jersey's arm mid-swing and twisted it behind his back with practiced efficiency. The massive one released Mara and charged the first guard. Big mistake. The guard sidestepped smoothly and used the attacker's momentum to send him crashing into the wall. It was over in maybe 15 seconds. The 3 thugs were on the ground, 2 unconscious, 1 groaning and clutching his arm. The 2 guards weren't even breathing hard. Miss Santos, the first guard, older with salt and pepper hair and a professional demeanor, turned to her. "Are you hurt?" Mara slid down the wall until she was sitting, her legs unable to support her any longer. "Who are you?" "Marco. That's Tony." He gestured to the other guard. "Mr. Romano's security detail. We've been watching your building since last night." He knew, her voice came out flat. He knew this would happen. He anticipated it. "Yes." Marco pulled out his phone. "I'm calling him now." "No, don't!" But Marco was already talking. "Sir, yes, sir. 3 hostiles. Miss Santos is unharmed." "No, sir. Yes, sir." He held out the phone to Mara. "He wants to speak with you." She stared at the phone as if it might bite. Then, slowly, she took it. "Are you hurt?" Vittorio's voice was tight. Untamed fury, barely contained. "No," your men intervened. "My men shouldn't have been put in that position. You should have been out of harm's way." A pause stretched. "I'm 5 minutes away." "You don't need to?" 5 minutes. He ended the call. Mara returned the phone to Marco. The distant wail of police sirens pierced the air, suggesting someone had already alerted the authorities. Doors along the hallway creaked open, neighbors peeking out. Her gaze fell upon the prone figures. One stirred, blood trickling from his nose. These weren't Daniel's friends posturing. These were genuine criminals, dispatched by someone with a clear objective. True to his word, Vittorio arrived in an astonishing 4.5 minutes. Mara sensed his presence before she saw him, the determined, furious rhythm of his footsteps on the stairs. He burst through the stairwell door like a tempest, his dark eyes sweeping the scene before fixing on her with an intensity that snatched her breath. Dropping to a crouch in front of her, his hands hovered near her shoulders, not quite touching. "Did they harm you?" he rasped. "Just bruises, that's all." His jaw tightened. He turned to Marco. "Names?" "Working on it, sir." Victoria's gaze returned to Mara. "This is why I came to your office. Not to impose my will, but to warn you." His voice softened. "Do you honestly believe I relish this responsibility? I have enough people I'm obligated to protect. Then why? She countered. Because you sat on my lap and pleaded for assistance. In my world, that carries weight. He rose, extending a hand. You now face two options. Accompany me to a secure location, or remain here and await their next visit. Better armed, less conspicuous. Mara surveyed her hallway, the peeling paint, the flickering fluorescent light, the three unconscious men who had intended her harm, her ordinary life, her safe, unremarkable existence. It was gone. The moment she'd made that desperate plea at Aurelio's, it vanished. If I go with you, she began slowly, what exactly does that entail? It means you will reside on my property, under protection, until I ascertain who sent them and unequivocally establish your untouchability. His stern expression softened slightly. It means you're safe, and in return, you refrain from any foolish acts, such as rejecting protection when people are actively attempting to abduct you. Despite everything, Mara almost smiled. Almost. That's it? She questioned. That's it. He offered his hand again. I am not Daniel Mara. I don't require control over you to feel powerful. But I do need you to trust that I possess the capability to manage this situation. The police sirens grew louder. Marco spoke rapidly into his phone, coordinating something unseen. Mara took Vittorio's hand. His grip was warm, steady. He effortlessly pulled her to her feet. I'll need a bag. Tony is already in your apartment. He will gather whatever you require. Vittorio's hand moved to her back, guiding her toward the stairs. We are departing now, just like that? He asked. And for the first time, she saw past the cool composure to something deeper. Genuine concern, perhaps even fear. Just like that, he reiterated, because next time I might not arrive in time. Mara allowed herself to be led down the stairs, past the gathering crowd, and into the back of a black SUV, where the leather seats offered plush comfort and the windows were bulletproof. She had sought help from a mafia boss. Now she was experiencing the repercussions. The Romano estate, nestled 40 minutes outside Chicago, lay concealed behind 12-foot stone walls and imposing iron gates that evoked a medieval fortress. As the SUV wound its way up the curved driveway, Mara pressed her face to the window, absorbing every detail. The villa was colossal, 3 stories of pale stone and dark wood, with arched windows gleaming in the late afternoon sun. Manicured gardens stretched on either side, and a fountain. An actual fountain adorned with marble lions dominated the circular courtyard. This wasn't mere affluence, this was a legacy. Generations of power etched into every brick. It's a bit much, Vittorio remarked, observing her reaction. It's terrifying, Mara admitted honestly. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Good instincts. The car halted. Marco opened her door, and Mara stepped onto cobblestones that likely predated her grandmother. Men in suits, guards she presumed, stood at attention near the entrance. Their eyes tracked her with a professional assessment, not overtly hostile, just measuring. The massive front doors swung open before they reached them. A woman in her 60s appeared, her steel-gray hair pulled back into a tight bun, clad in black slacks and a white blouse. Her expression could have chilled water. Mr. Romano, her voice was crisp. Your guest. The word guest sounded remarkably like an insult. Mrs. Chen, this is Mara Santos. Vittorio's tone was neutral. She will be staying in the East Wing. Ensure she has everything she needs. Mrs. Chen's eyes swept over Mara, her discount coat, her scuffed heels, her decidedly non-designer bag. The judgment was silent but absolute. Of course, sir. Vittorio turned to Mara. I have business to attend to. Mrs. Chen will escort you to your room. If you require anything— I'll be fine, Mara interjected quickly, unwilling to appear helpless, not here. He studied her for a moment, then nodded and vanished through a doorway with Marco. The ensuing silence was suffocating. This way, Mrs. Chen declared, turning without waiting, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Mara followed her through a foyer befitting a museum, a crystal chandelier, oil paintings in gilded frames, a staircase that curved upwards like something from a classic film. Everything was beautiful. Everything was cold. You will reside in the East Wing, Mrs. Chen stated as they ascended. Mr. Romano's private quarters are in the West Wing. You are not to enter that area without permission. I wouldn't. The staff has been with the Romano family for decades. We are loyal. We are discreet. Mrs. Chin paused at the top of the stairs, turning to face her. We also recognize opportunists when we see them. Mara stopped. Excuse me? You heard me. Mrs. Chen's eyes were hard. Girls like you come and go. They see a powerful man and imagine they can— I'm not here by choice, Mara interrupted, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Men attempted to abduct me this morning. I am here because it is the only safe place right now. That is all. Mrs. Chen's expression remained unchanged. Of course. How convenient for you. She continued down the hallway. Mara forced herself to follow, anger simmering beneath her skin. She had escaped one controlling situation, only to land in another, where everyone instantly assumed the worst of her. The room was breathtaking. A 4-poster bed, antique furniture, windows overlooking the gardens, a bathroom with a tub the size of a small pool. It should have felt like indulgence, but instead, it felt like a gilded cage. Dinner is at 7, Mrs. Chen announced from the doorway. Appropriate attire is expected. I don't have— There are clothes in the closet, courtesy of Mr. Romano. Her lips thinned. He anticipates everything. Then she departed, closing the door with a soft click. Mara sank onto the bed, suddenly exhausted. She had been attacked, rescued, and transported to a world she utterly failed to comprehend. And everyone here believed she was some kind of gold digger. Fine. Let them think it. At precisely 7 o'clock, Mara made her way downstairs. She had found a simple black dress in the closet, tasteful, modest, expensive. It fit perfectly, which was somehow more unsettling than if it hadn't. Voices echoed from the dining room, male voices speaking rapid Italian. She recognized Vittorio's low rumble. Mara straightened her spine and walked in. The room fell silent. Vittorio sat at the head of a long mahogany table. 3 men flanked him, older, menacing-looking, clad in suits that could not conceal the violence in their eyes. Guards lined the walls. Mrs. Chin stood near a serving cart, her face impassive. "Gentlemen," Vittorio said smoothly, "this is Mara Santos. Mara, these are my advisors." The man to Vittorio's right, balding, sharp-eyed, around 50, scrutinized her. "The girl from the restaurant, then." "Woman," Mara corrected before she could stop herself. "I'm 25, not 12. The sharp-eyed man's eyebrows rose. Victoria's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. "Enzo Caruso," the man stated. "Mr. Romano's consigliere. I handle complications." The implication was painfully clear. She was a complication. "Nice to meet you," Mara said, taking the empty seat near the middle of the table, not at the head, as if she belonged, but not at the far end, as if she were beneath them. Enzo's eyes narrowed. "Tell me, Miss Santos, what precisely were you hoping to gain by your performance at Aurelio's?" "Enzo!" Victoria's voice carried a distinct warning. "It's a fair question, boss. She appears out of nowhere, sits on your lap in public, and suddenly she's under your roof." Enzo leaned forward. "That's quite the upgrade from a studio apartment in Lincoln Park." Mara met his gaze without flinching. "You're right. It is an upgrade. Your boss has running water that doesn't turn brown, heat that actually works, and guards who prevent people from trying to kidnap me. Huge improvements." One of the other men, younger, with a scar through his eyebrow, snorted. Enzo was not amused. "You think this is humorous? You've brought attention to this family, unwanted scrutiny, all because you required a knight in shining armor." "I needed a human shield," Mara corrected. "There's a difference. And I didn't ask for cameras or gossip logs. I asked for 30 seconds of help. Everything else? That's not on me. Everything else is precisely on you." "Enough!" Victorio's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Mara is here because I brought her here. Anyone who has a problem with that can discuss it with me privately." Enzo leaned back, jaw tight. The message was unmistakable. Dinner was served in tense silence. Mara ate mechanically, acutely aware of every eye on her, judging each movement. The food was incredible, authentic Italian, entirely unlike the reheated pasta she usually consumed, but it could have been cardboard for all she tasted it. When Mrs. Chun brought out dessert, Mara stood. "Thank you for dinner. I'm tired. I'll be in my room." She did not wait for permission. With her head held high, she departed, keenly aware of Victoria's gaze lingering on her. She reached her room just as an uncontrollable tremor resumed in her hands. This place, she realized, was a paradoxical blend of beauty and terror. Its inhabitants viewed her with either suspicion or disdain. She simply didn't belong, and likely never would. A sudden knock startled her. "Come in," she called. Vittorio entered, quietly closing the door behind him. In the subdued light of her chamber, he seemed less like a formidable mafia boss and more like a weary, concerned man. "You handled Enzo adeptly," he observed. "He despises me. He suspects you. It's his role." Vittorio stepped closer. "Yet, you neither wept nor apologized, nor sought their approval. You stood firm. What other choice did I have? Most would have faltered." His dark eyes meticulously scrutinized her face. "You possess more strength than you appear to, Mara Santos." "I've had ample practice," she stated softly. A silent understanding passed between them. She had survived Daniel's ordeal, braved the morning's confrontation, and now, this too. "Get some rest," Vittorio instructed, turning towards the door. "Tomorrow, we begin unraveling who desires your harm and why." He paused. "Vittorio, thank you for preventing them from devouring me alive downstairs." A subtle curve touched his lips. "They are testing you. Pass enough trials, and they will cease." "And if I don't pass, you will," she retorted with resolute certainty. "Good night, Mar." After his departure, Mara lay on the vast bed, her gaze fixed on the ornate ceiling. She had indeed entered the lion's den. Now she merely had to survive its perils. Mara awoke to hushed whispers outside her door. "Don't trust her. She appears from nowhere." And suddenly, "Lower your voice. She might hear." "Good. Perhaps she should know we're watching." The voices receded down the corridor. Mara remained motionless, staring at the elaborate ceiling. On her second day at the Romano villa, the proverbial welcome mat was already being aggressively withdrawn. Dressing in jeans and a sweater from the inexplicably well-stocked closet, she ventured downstairs. In daylight, the house felt transformed, less imposing, more inhabited. Sunlight streamed through towering windows, illuminating dancing dust motes and the worn patterns on expensive rugs. The kitchen was situated at the villa's rear. Following the scent of coffee, Mara discovered a spacious room equipped with commercial-grade appliances and a woman in her 40s aggressively chopping vegetables. "Good morning," Mara greeted. The woman, her dark hair braided, flour dusting her apron, looked up with barely concealed annoyance. "Breakfast concluded an hour ago." "Oh, I was unaware of a schedule." "There's always a schedule." The knife descended sharply onto a carrot. "Mr. Romano dines at 7, staff at 6:30. Guests," she paused pointedly. "Guests are expected to manage for themselves." Mara's stomach rumbled, yet she maintained a pleasant tone. "Is there at least coffee?" "Help yourself." The woman gestured vaguely towards a pot without looking up. Mara poured a cup, the silence stretching uncomfortably. She was about to leave when the woman spoke again. "Do you understand why you're here?" "To survive," Mara stated plainly. The knife paused mid-chop. The woman finally met her gaze properly. "Do you perceive this as a jest? This family requires no further complications. We have ample issues without some girl." "Woman," Mara gently corrected. "And I'm not attempting to complicate anything. I'm merely endeavoring not to be abducted or killed by seeking refuge with Mr. Romano." "Quite convenient." Mara set down her coffee cup. "You're right. It is convenient. It is also terrifying, humiliating, and entirely unwanted. But here I am. So perhaps both of us can make the best of it." The woman stared at her, then returned to her vegetables. "Sandwiches are in the fridge. Help yourself." It wasn't a warm invitation, but neither was it hostile. Progress. Mara found Vittorio in what appeared to be his office, a room adorned with bookshelves and dark wood furniture. Enzo sat opposite him. Both men looked up as she knocked. "I can return later," Mara offered. "No, come in." Vittorio gestured towards a chair. "We were just discussing you." "That doesn't sound ominous at all." Enzo's expression was carved from ice. "Miss Santos, did you sleep well?" "Well enough." "Good." He leaned forward. Because I have questions, starting with, where were you 3 months ago? Mara blinked. Working at Stella's diner. Why? And before that? Same establishment for 2 years. She looked between them. What's happening? Standard security check, Vittorio interjected, though his jaw was tight. It's beyond standard, Enzo cut in. A woman materializes out of nowhere, sits on the boss's lap during a highly public dinner, and is now residing under this roof. How does that appear to you? Like I made a desperate choice, Mara asserted. Or like someone dispatched you. Enzo produced a folder. Your ex-boyfriend, Daniel Chendo? You know his uncle? Mara's stomach plummeted. He never mentioned an uncle. Thomas Chen, a small-time loan shark with ties to the Kozlov family. Enzo's eyes were stone hard. Our rivals. The room seemed to tilt. You believe Daniel sent me to spy? The thought crossed my mind. That's ludicrous. Daniel is a narcissistic accountant who cannot tolerate rejection. He lacks the intellect or the courage for espionage. Perhaps. Or perhaps he's shrewder than you imagine. Enzo slid the folder across the desk. 3 days prior to your serendipitous encounter at Aurelio's, Daniel had coffee with his uncle. 2 days later, his uncle met with an operative from the Kozlov organization. Mara's hands began to tremble. She pressed them flat against her thighs. I truly didn't know. I swear I was oblivious to any of this. That's precisely what someone would say if they were bait, Enzo stated coldly. Or if they were speaking the truth. Mara met his gaze. I sat on Vittorio's lap because I was desperate, and he was the most formidable person in the room. That's all. No premeditation, just sheer panic. Panic can be orchestrated. Vittorio's voice, though quiet, carried immense authority. Enough. Boss, with all due respect, we cannot... I said enough. Vittorio stood. My decision is made. Miss Santos will receive full, round-the-clock protection. No exceptions. Enzo's face darkened. Even if, especially if she's bait. If they sent her, keeping her close keeps us one step ahead. Victoria's dark eyes sought Mara's. And if she's innocent, then she is endangered because of me. Either way, she stays. The consigliere stood stiffly. As you wish, but I am assigning my best personnel to investigate her background. Everything. School records, medical history, friends, adversaries. If a connection to the Kozlovs exists, I will uncover it. Do what you must, Mara said tiredly. You won't find anything. After Enzo departed, silence enveloped the office. Vittorio poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter and offered one to her. I typically don't drink before noon, Mara remarked. Today is an exception. He clinked his glass against hers. Welcome to a life under perpetual suspicion. She took a sip. It burned, yet in a strangely grounding way. Do you truly believe I might be collaborating with your adversaries? I believe Enzo's responsibility is to scrutinize every possibility, Vittorio said, perching on the edge of his desk. My responsibility is to make decisions, and I've decided you are remaining here. Why? Because innocent people don't correct mafia bosses' word choices during dinner. Spies would be more judicious. A faint smile touched his lips. You are too genuine to be an imposter. That might be the most peculiar compliment I've ever received. Become accustomed to peculiarity. It's all we deal with here. The subsequent days settled into an uncomfortable rhythm. Mara moved through the villa like a phantom, everyone feigning unawareness of her presence. The staff, with the sole exception of the cook, Maria, who had marginally softened, treated her with cold professionalism. Guards maintained a respectful distance, present yet silent. On the 3rd morning, Mara discovered her dinner dishes still on the table from the previous night. The maid had meticulously cleaned everything else, yet deliberately bypassed hers. She carried them to the kitchen herself. Maria looked up, surprised. I can manage my own dishes, Mara stated. That's not the way things operate here. Perhaps they should be. I am not helpless. Maria studied her intently. You are not what I anticipated. What did you anticipate? Someone feebler. Someone who would weep or throw histrionics. She wiped her hands on her apron. Someone who would make demands. I endured 3 years with a man who perceived me as demanding merely for requesting basic respect, Mara said, rinsing her plate. I am no longer that person. I do not seek special treatment. I simply desire to be left alone. Cannot leave you alone. Boss's directives. Then at least treat me like a human being, Mara turned. I did not solicit my presence here, but since I am, I will not conduct myself as though I am superior to anyone. That evening, her dishes were clean when she entered her room, a minor gesture, yet profoundly significant. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the household dynamic shifted, not with warmth, never truly warm, but a noticeable reduction in coldness. Guards offered nods as she passed. Maria began saving her leftovers. Even Enzo's icy glares thawed into merely disapproving looks. Mara assimilated into the house's rhythm. She remained discreet during business hours, refrained from questioning the men who came and went, and made herself useful by assisting Maria with prep work in the kitchen. "You needn't do this," Maria remarked one afternoon, observing her chop onions. "I know, but I'm going stir-crazy with nothing to occupy me. Most guests would be shopping or having their nails done. I am not most guests." Maria smiled, an actual smile. "No, you are not." That night at dinner, a smaller gathering this time, featuring only Vittorio and two associates, Enzo arrived late. He drew Vittorio aside, their conversation hushed and urgent. When Vittorio returned to the table, his expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes found Mara's and held them. "We have identified the men who attacked you," he stated. "Low-level thugs employed by the Kozlovs. They sought leverage." "Against you?" Mara questioned. "Against me?" He paused. "Your ex-boyfriend provided them with your address, your schedule, everything. However, the investigation implies he was manipulated, exploited. His uncle played him." A complex cocktail of relief and anger surged within Mara. "So, I'm not bait." "No," Enzo's voice came from behind her. "You are a victim. I was mistaken." Mara turned. The consigliere's face remained firm, yet something had shifted. Not trust, not yet, but acknowledgement. "I apologize," he said stiffly. "You were protecting him," Mara observed. "I understand." Enzo gave a single nod and then departed. Vittorio raised his glass. "To surviving day 4. Mara echoed his gesture. "To passing the test." "You didn't just pass," he said quietly. "You impressed them. That's a harder feat." Later, alone in her room, Mara recognized a fundamental shift. She was no longer a captive. She wasn't even merely a guest. She was progressively integrating into the household. The pressing question was, what did she truly desire? Across town, in a cramped apartment reeking of takeout and desperation, Daniel Chin fixated on his phone screen. The photograph was ubiquitous. 5 days later, and the discussion still raged. Mara on Romano's lap, Mara being escorted into his car, Mara vanishing behind those formidable iron gates as if swallowed by a different realm. His world, the one for which she had spurned Daniel. "You look dreadful," his Uncle Thomas remarked from the doorway. Thomas was a compact man in an expensive suit, his eyes calculating probabilities with a speed that surpassed most people's breathing. "She made me look like an imbecile," Daniel mumbled. "She made you look feeble. There's a crucial distinction." Thomas settled into a chair without invitation. "I cautioned you about that girl. Too intelligent for her own good. Too independent. I could have remedied that." "No, you couldn't have, but I can." Daniel looked up, curiosity piqued. "What do you signify?" Thomas produced his phone and displayed a text exchange. "The Kozlov family expresses significant interest in Vittorio Romano's recent distraction. They are prepared to compensate for intelligence, movement schedules, security details, anything that might expose his vulnerabilities. I possess none of that information, but you know Mara. You understand her thinking, her priorities, how to manipulate her." Thomas leaned forward. "You aid them in harming Romano by harming her. You receive payment, and you achieve your retribution." Daniel's hands clenched into fists. The rational segment of his mind, the accountant's part, acknowledged the sheer lunacy of this proposal. One simply did not antagonize the Romano family. One did not collaborate with the Kozlovs unless harboring a death wish. Yet, another part of him, the part that had witnessed Mara repeatedly walk away, the part that had seen her gaze upon Romano with an intensity she had never afforded Daniel, that part yearned for total annihilation. "How much?" he inquired. Thomas smiled. enough to vanish afterwards, to begin anew somewhere warm. Mara, collateral damage. She made her choice. Daniel contemplated the offer for precisely 10 seconds. I'm in. Back at the Romano estate, Mara found sleep elusive. It was past midnight, and the villa lay shrouded in a quiet hum, punctuated only by the occasional footfall of a patrolling guard. She attempted reading, watched content on her phone, exhausted every option except the one that might genuinely work. Venturing outside, the gardens exuded tranquility during daylight hours. Perhaps at night, their serenity would suffice to quell her racing thoughts. She slipped on a cardigan and padded barefoot down the hallway, past marble columns and ancient portraits whose eyes seemed to track her every movement. The side door leading to the gardens was unlocked, likely because the estate was an impenetrable fortress anyway. The night air was crisp, carrying the ethereal scent of jasmine and freshly cut grass. A stone pathway meandered through meticulously sculpted hedges, culminating in a small courtyard adorned with a fountain. The gentle murmur of the water was precisely the balm she needed. Can't sleep? Mara startled, spinning around to find Vittorio emerging from the shadows. He wore dark trousers and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, appearing more relaxed than she had ever witnessed. Apologies, I didn't intend to intrude. You're not. He moved to perch on the fountain's edge. I come here when the walls feel too confining. It aids my contemplation. Mara hesitated, then joined him, maintaining a respectful distance. What do you ponder? She asked. Choices, consequences, whether the people I safeguard are worth the adversaries I create. He glanced at her. Tonight, I'm contemplating you. That sounds ominous. Not ominous, curious. Vittorio studied her profile, illuminated by the moonlight. That night at Aurelio's, most individuals would have panicked, frozen, or attempted escape. You walked directly to a stranger and sat on his lap. Why? Mara was silent for a moment, observing the fountain. Because panicking never proved effective with Daniel. If I displayed fear, he battened on it, worsening the situation. I learned early on that the sole means of surviving him was to act unpredictably. And you believed that sitting on a mafia boss's lap was sufficiently unpredictable? I believed you were the most formidable person in the room, and I needed Daniel to be intimidated. She turned to face him. I didn't know who you were. I just knew you possessed power, the kind that makes men like Daniel remember their insignificance. You wagered everything on a stranger's clemency. I wagered everything on a stranger's ego. She smiled faintly. Men with power dislike being disregarded. I surmised you would indulge me, simply to observe the outcome. Vittorio laughed, a genuine, low, and surprised sound. You manipulated me. I requested assistance. You elected to provide it. Most people wouldn't perceive the distinction. I spent 3 years with someone who couldn't differentiate between asking and demanding. I comprehend exactly where that line lies. Mara pulled her cardigan tighter. I am sorry if I complicated your life. You did, but complicated is not invariably negative. He remained silent for a moment. Do you wish to know why I truly assisted you that night? Because you observed the bruises on my wrist? Partially, but predominantly because you whispered, please. You neither demanded nor expected. You requested with dignity. His dark eyes met hers. Do you fathom how rare that is in my world? Everyone either fears me or desires something from me. You simply desired safety, and you offered it. Why? Because I recall what it feels like to be powerless. The vulnerability in his voice was striking. My father constructed this empire with blood and terror. I inherited it. But before that, I was merely a child, observing my mother flinch at shadows, never knowing if my father would return home. She also sought safety. No one granted it to her. Mara's chest tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be. It imparted a lesson to me. He turned to fully face her. Power without protection is merely violence. And violence without purpose is simply cruelty. So you protect people? I protect people who ask, who need it, who deserve it. His gaze held hers. You are all three. The air between them shifted, charged with something Mara couldn't quite articulate. Not romance, not yet, but understanding, recognition. Two individuals who had learned to survive in distinct forms of peril. Your consigliere still doesn't trust me. she noted. Enzo trusts no one but me. And at times, not even me. Vittorio smiled. But he respects you. That is more significant. How do you know? Because he apologized. Enzo never apologizes. He was protecting you. I cannot fault him for that. Most people would. Vittorio rose, extending his hand. You are not most people, Mara Santos. She accepted his hand, allowing him to pull her to her feet. His grip was warm, steady, and lingered a moment longer than strictly necessary. I should return before someone presumes I'm escaping, she said. You could leave, he interjected, his voice serious. I am not holding you captive, if you wish to depart. Where would I go? Back to my apartment where people know my address? Back to a job where everyone whispers? She shook her head. At least here, I am safe. Is that the sole reason you are staying? Mara looked at him, truly examining the man who had aided a stranger, who had opened his home despite the risks, who defended her when his own people harbored doubts, who stood in his garden at midnight discussing fear, power, and protection. No, she admitted quietly. It's not. Something profound passed between them, a recognition that whatever this was, be it protection, alliance, or partnership, it was evolving into something more, something neither of them had anticipated. Good night, Mara, Vittorio said softly. Good night. As she walked back toward the villa, Mara realized the walls no longer felt entirely like a cage. And Vittorio, watching her depart, understood that protecting her had ceased feeling like an obligation. It had begun to feel like a choice, the kind of choice that reshaped everything. Mara had always possessed a keen observational sense. It was a survival mechanism honed during her years with Daniel, where she learned to decode body language, monitor moods, and detect inconsistencies before they escalated into crises. So, on her 6th morning at the Romano estate, when she observed Mrs. Chin surreptitiously pass an envelope to an unfamiliar man near the service entrance, a subtle alarm resonated within her. It was probably nothing. Staff members had personal lives, received mail, interacted with people, all normal occurrences. Yet, the way Mrs. Chin furtively glanced around first, the way the man immediately pocketed the envelope without inspecting its contents, and the way they both swiftly distanced themselves afterward, that was decidedly abnormal. Mara mentally filed the information and proceeded with her day. That afternoon, while assisting Maria with vegetable preparation in the kitchen, she overheard 2 guards conversing in the hallway. They moved a meeting to Thursday. Nobody informed me of that. Are you certain? The boss's schedule changed this morning. Check your phone. Mara's hands paused on the carrots. She had been with Vittorio at breakfast. He had confirmed a Wednesday meeting, expressing frustration over a conflict. When had it shifted to Thursday? Are you all right? Maria inquired. Yes, just tired. But she wasn't tired. She was acutely alert. That specific heightened awareness, born from sensing something amiss, without knowing precisely what. Over the ensuing 2 days, Mara noticed more subtle details. A guard she had never encountered before stood post near Vittorio's office, even though Marco had mentioned the regular rotation just the previous day. Mrs. Nami Chin made 3 trips to the garden gate within an hour, always when Vittorio was engaged in meetings. A phone conversation she inadvertently overheard. Tuesday night, East Wing, 2nd floor, followed by a hasty hang-up when the speaker noticed her. None of these incidents were individually damning, yet collectively, they formed a pattern, and patterns always signified something. On the 3rd day, Mara found herself in the security office, a room near the garage filled with monitors displaying various sections of the estate. Marco was present, reviewing surveillance footage. Miss Santos? He queried, looking up with a hint of surprise. Something amiss? Perhaps, probably not, she equivocated. This could be entirely baseless. I might be experiencing paranoia, interpreting danger in innocuous behavior as I did for years with Daniel. May I pose a question? Certainly. How frequently do staff members have visitors? I mean, people utilizing the service entrance? Marco's expression sharpened subtly. Infrequently. Why do you ask? I observed Mrs. Chin conversing with an unfamiliar man 3 days ago. She handed him an envelope. It could have been personal correspondence, yet she furtively surveyed her surroundings, as if hoping to avoid detection. Mara gravitated closer to the monitors. And I've noticed alterations in the schedule. Minor adjustments. Meeting times, guard rotations, things that feel off. Marco set down his coffee. How off? I overheard guards discussing a Tuesday meeting, intended for Wednesday, and a new guard was positioned near Mr. Romano's office yesterday. I'd never seen him before. New security personnel are commonplace. But 2 days ago, you mentioned the rotation schedule and confirmed everyone was accounted for. Mara met his gaze directly. Marco, I am attentive. I had to be, with my ex. It ensured my survival. The security chief remained silent for a considerable period, scrutinizing her. Then, he accessed a file on his computer. The guard you saw, tall, dark hair, a scar on his neck. Yes, that's Dominic. He's been with us for 6 months. Marco's jaw tightened. But you're correct. He wasn't assigned to office duty. He requested a last-minute swap. Why would he do that? A pertinent question. Marco began accessing more footage, his movements swift and precise. Have you observed anything else? Any minute detail, no matter how insignificant? Mara reflected. Mrs. Chin frequently visits the garden gate, always when Mr. Romano is preoccupied. And I overheard someone on the phone say, Tuesday night, East Wing, 2nd floor. That's tomorrow night, my floor. Marco's expression turned frigid. Remain here. He exited the room abruptly. Mara stood amidst the monitors, her heart pounding. Perhaps she had unnecessarily implicated someone. Could paranoia be contagious, a side effect of dwelling among a household of suspicious individuals? 10 minutes later, Marco returned with Vittorio. The Don's countenance was meticulously neutral, but his eyes conveyed an intense focus. Relate precisely what you communicated to Marco, Vittorio instructed, without preamble. Mara recounted every detail, Mrs. Chin's envelope, the schedule modifications, Dominic's unexplained presence, the overheard phone conversation. Vittorio listened without interruption, his expression darkening progressively. The phone call, he interjected. Male or female voice? Male, younger, I believe, in his 20s perhaps. And they specifically mentioned Tuesday night? Yes, Tuesday night, East Wing, 2nd floor. Then they disconnected when they saw me. Vittorio exchanged a glance with Marco. That's tomorrow. The East Wing's 2nd floor is my room, Mara concluded. And the guest rooms. Why would someone... She paused, understanding dawning upon her. They're orchestrating something. It could be surveillance. It could be access. Vittorio's voice was taut. Either way, you've just identified a security breach. I could be mistaken. Your instincts preserved your life with an abuser for 3 years. He stepped closer. I trust them. Marco, review all footage from the past week. Examine communications, conduct background checks on anyone who has accessed the East Wing. Marco was already in motion, and I'll assign additional surveillance to Mrs. Chin and Dominic. After Marco departed, Vittorio regarded Mara with an expression bordering on awe, as if questioning, How did you apprehend all of this? I informed you I mastered the art of discerning patterns, she responded. With Daniel, misinterpreting a mood shift could portend a night of shouting, or worse. So I observed, I learned. She wrapped her arms around herself. I thought I was merely being paranoid. You were not. You were exercising caution. He moved towards the monitors, scrutinizing the various camera angles. Most of my personnel have served me for years. They perceive what they anticipate, but you are new. You notice what is incongruous. Do you genuinely believe there's a traitor? I suspect someone is feeding information to individuals who desire my demise, and you've just assisted me in narrowing down the suspects. Vittorio turned back to her. Henceforth, if you discern anything, and I mean anything, you report directly to me or Marco immediately. Understood? Yes. I mean it, Mara. Your observations could preserve lives, including your own. The gravity of his words settled over her. She had inadvertently stumbled into something far grander than Daniel's vengeance or rival families seeking leverage. This was an internal matter, a betrayal originating from within the household. Tomorrow night, Vittorio stated quietly, whatever they're planning for the East Wing, we will be prepared. But I am relocating you to the West Wing, my quarters. Mara's eyes widened. That appears to be safe. It is safe. His voice brokered no argument. If an individual is targeting your location, you do not remain there. What about Mrs. Chin and Dominic? If you move me, won't they realize something is amiss? A valid point, Vittorio conceded. We will keep you in your room, but with Marco's team providing surveillance and me in close proximity. You don't have to... Yes, I do. He met her gaze. You have just proven you are more than a guest under protection. You are an asset, and I safeguard my assets. It should have sounded callous, transactional. Instead, it resonated as respect. Thank you, Mara said softly. Do not thank me yet. If your assessment regarding Tuesday night is accurate, matters are about to escalate significantly. He advanced towards the door, then paused. Mara, in my world, individuals who observe things either become exceedingly valuable or exceedingly deceased. You have just become valuable. Let us maintain that status. After his departure, Mara stood in the security office, enveloped by screens exhibiting every angle of the estate. Somewhere within this residence, someone was working against Vittorio. Someone who possessed knowledge of the schedules, the rotations, the vulnerabilities. Someone who had planned an event for tomorrow night. And somehow, Mara had become instrumental in thwarting it. She merely hoped her instincts proved as dependable as Vittorio believed. The charity gala was the last place Mara desired to be. You need not attend, Vittorio had stated that morning, adjusting his bow tie before the mirror. You are attending a public event with a target on your back, and you expect me to remain here alone? Mara had retorted. After everything we uncovered yesterday? He had smiled at her assertiveness. Fair point. Now, standing in the Fairmont Hotel ballroom, adorned in a borrowed navy gown that fit suspiciously well, Mara felt like an interloper. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow upon Chicago's elite. Politicians, CEOs, old money families who had mastered the art of feigning nonchalance regarding the Romano name. Vittorio navigated the throng with practiced ease, shaking hands, engaging in small talk, embodying the role of a legitimate businessman. Marco and 3 other guards maintained a vigilant perimeter, clad in suits that failed to completely conceal their alert postures. Are you all right? Vittorio inquired softly during a lull. Absolutely peachy. I adore being scrutinized by individuals who perceive me as your mistress. Let them believe it. It preempts further inquiries. He handed her a glass of champagne. Just remain close. We will depart in an hour. But an hour felt interminable. Mara offered polite smiles during introductions, nodded through conversations concerning stocks and summer residences, and endeavored to suppress thoughts of their exposed vulnerability. Too many exits, too many windows, too many unfamiliar faces. Her survival instinct screamed. We should go, she whispered to Vittorio during a discussion with a city councilman. Soon, he replied without disrupting his smile. Mara compelled herself to breathe. She was succumbing to paranoia once more. This was a charity event, not a war zone. Security was omnipresent. Nothing was going to... She saw it. Through the ballroom's towering windows, in the circular drive where valets parked vehicles, a black sedan sat idling. Nothing inherently unusual, except it had been there for 20 minutes. Same spot, same position. Engine running, and it was angled incorrectly. Most vehicles aligned parallel to the entrance. This one faced it head-on, as if poised for rapid movement. The windows were tinted sufficiently dark to obscure the interior, but the driver's side was aimed directly at the exit doors. The very exit doors where Vittorio's car was parked. Mara's mouth went dry. Vittorio! One moment, he responded, concluding his sentence to the councilman. Now, her voice was low but urgent. He must have detected a change in her tone, for he immediately excused himself, turning to her with sharp attention. What is it? That black sedan by the east exit. It's been there too long, and its position is wrong. Vittorio's eyes flicked to the window, then to Marco across the room. A silent exchange passed between them. Marco nodded and spoke into his wrist microphone. It could be nothing, Vittorio said, but his body had tensed. Or it could be everything. Mara scanned the room. We should use the back exit. If we use the back exit, we appear afraid. If we appear afraid, you appear intelligent, Vittorio. Please. That car is wrong. He studied her face, weighing her instincts against protocol, against pride. Then he nodded. "Marco, back exit, now." Marco moved immediately, redirecting the other guards. They formed a loose circle around Vittorio and Mara, guiding them towards the ballroom's rear exit, which led to the service corridor. They were halfway across the room when Mara glanced back at the window. The sedan's doors were opening. "Run!" she shouted. Everything happened at once. 4 men emerged from the sedan, retrieving automatic weapons from inside their coats. The crowd near the windows screamed. Someone overturned a table. Glass shattered. Mara seized Vittorio's arm and yanked him sideways just as the first window exploded inward. Bullets shredded the space where he had been standing, pulverizing the marble floor and shattering a champagne fountain. They hit the ground hard, Mara instinctively covering her head as Marco and the security team returned fire. The cacophony was deafening. Gunshots, panicked screams, and the splintering crash of windows multiplying around them. Vittorio, with surprising speed, yanked Mara behind an overturned catering table. "Stay low!" he commanded. "As if I had any other plans," she gasped, the words barely escaping her lips. Marco's sharp voice cut through the pandemonium. "South exit clear! Move!" Vittorio hauled Mara to her feet, and they sprinted, hunched over, protected by a tight ring of guards. Behind them, more gunfire erupted as the assailants breached the ballroom. The service corridor plunged into disarray. Staff members screamed, scattering like startled birds. A waiter, trembling, dropped a tray of dishes, sending porcelain crashing. Mara's borrowed heels slipped on the polished marble, but Vittorio's firm grip kept her upright. "Exit ahead!" Marco yelled. "Cars are pulling up." They burst through the door into the crisp night air. A black SUV shrieked to a halt directly in front of them, its rear door already ajar. Marco shoved them inside, then threw himself in after them, the vehicle already accelerating before the door could fully close. More gunfire echoed, and the rear window instantly spiderwebbed, yet held strong bulletproof. The driver took the corners with a speed that made Mara's stomach churn. "Is everyone all right?" Vittorio demanded, his voice taut. "Affirmative, boss," Marco replied, already on his phone. "Team Alpha report. We took down two more escaped. Police are inbound. We're extracting now." Mara suddenly realized she was trembling uncontrollably. The adrenaline that had sharpened her senses was now ebbing, leaving her feeling hollow and vulnerable. She had narrowly escaped death. They had narrowly escaped death, all because she had noticed that car. "Hey!" Vittorio's hand found hers in the SUV's dim interior. "Look at me." She turned. His face was grave, intense, but devoid of anger. "You saved my life," he stated simply. "I just saw a car. You saw what everyone else missed, including my highly trained security detail." His grip tightened slightly. "If you hadn't spoken up, if you hadn't trusted your intuition, I would be dead right now." The gravity of his words settled heavily within the confines of the vehicle. Marco met her gaze in the rearview mirror, offering a single, acknowledging nod, a silent testament to respect. "I was terrified," Mara confessed quietly. "Good," Vittorio responded. "Fear keeps you sharp." He released her hand, but remained close. "Thank you, Mara. I owe you my life." "You saved mine first," she countered, thinking of the restaurant and her apartment. "We're even." "No." His voice, though soft, was unyielding. "We're not even. We're partners. There's a profound difference. Partners. Not protector and protected. Not boss and guest. Partners." Mara nodded, still shaking but with newfound resolve. "Partners." 20 minutes later, the SUV swept through the grand gates of the Romano estate. The familiar place now seemed altered to Mara, no longer merely imposing, but imbued with a sense of security, almost like a sanctuary. As they stepped inside, Vittorio paused in the foyer. "Tomorrow," he declared, his voice hard, "we find out who betrayed me tonight, who leaked my schedule." "The same person who's been funneling information," Mara posited. "Mrs. Chun, Dominic, someone in your inner circle." "Precisely," he said, his jaw clenching. "And when we uncover them, they will answer for tonight, for putting you in danger. Not just him, but her too, as if her safety carried the exact same weight as his. Tomorrow," Vittorio concluded, "we end this. Yet, As Mara ascended the grand staircase to her room, she knew peaceful slumber would be elusive. They had survived tonight due to sheer luck and their quick wits. Tomorrow, they would require much more. Tomorrow, they needed to expose a traitor. Mara woke to a clamor of raised voices. It was barely dawn, a soft gray light filtering through her windows, but downstairs, somewhere below her room, men were shouting. She quickly donned jeans and a sweater, then crept into the hallway. The commotion emanated from the basement, a section of the villa she had never seen or even known existed. Following the sound, she descended the main stairs, past the kitchen where Maria had begun breakfast preparations, and approached a door she had always assumed was a storage closet. It was slightly ajar, and the voices now cut through the silence, revealing everything. "Please, just—" That voice. Mara's blood ran cold. She recognized it. Daniel. She moved closer to the door, pressing herself against the wall, hoping to remain unseen. Through the narrow crack, she glimpsed concrete steps leading down into what appeared to be a wine cellar. Yet, instead of bottles, there was a chair, and in that chair, zip-tied and bleeding from a split lip, sat her ex-boyfriend. Vittorio stood before him, arms crossed. Marco flanked him, along with two guards Mara didn't recognize. All of them exuded an air of calm, professionalism, and chilling resolve. "Let's try this again," Vittorio said, his voice carrying that same icy edge Mara had heard at the restaurant. "Who first contacted you after Aurelios?" "My uncle," Daniel sobbed, his voice cracking. "Thomas Chen. He called me that night, after he saw the photos online. He claimed he knew people who would pay for information about Vittorio." "The Kozlovs?" Vittorio prodded. "Yes, but I swear I didn't know what they'd do with it. I just wanted—" He choked on the words. "I wanted Mara to regret choosing you." Mara's hands clenched into fists. Even now, beaten and terrified, Daniel's primary concern was his wounded ego. "Your Uncle Thomas," Marco interjected, consulting a tablet. "He works for someone. Who?" "I don't know. He never said." "Wrong answer." Vittorio's tone remained level, yet Daniel flinched. "I'm telling the truth. He just said there was someone high up, someone who had been waiting for an opportunity to move against you. The whole thing with Mara, it was perfect timing." "Perfect timing," Vittorio echoed, "or a perfect setup." Daniel's head snapped up. "What? No, I saw the photos and lost it." "That was real? My uncle just capitalized on it. Did he tell you what to do, where to send her, what restaurant to choose?" Daniel hesitated. "He suggested Aurelios, said it was upscale, romantic, that Mara would be impressed. I didn't think—" "You didn't think," Marco cut in, "because you were manipulated, used. Your uncle knew Vittorio would be there that night. He knew what would happen." Mara's heart hammered in her chest. This couldn't be a mere coincidence. Someone had meticulously orchestrated the entire event, guiding Daniel to select that particular restaurant on that specific night, fully aware that Vittorio would be present, and understanding the potential consequences when a desperate woman and a powerful man crossed paths. "Who is your uncle's boss?" Vittorio demanded again. "I told you, I don't—" "Yes, you do. Because your uncle had to know Mr. Romano's schedule, had to know his security protocols, had to know which nights he'd be dining alone." Vittorio leaned closer. "That's not information the Kozlovs possess. That's internal." Daniel was visibly shaking. "Now," Vittorio pressed, "he mentioned a name once. When he was drunk, I didn't think it mattered." "What name?" "Lorenzo." Daniel swallowed hard. "Lorenzo Romano. He said, family is just another word for opportunity." A profound silence descended upon the basement. Mara felt as if she had been physically struck. Lorenzo? Vittorio's own cousin. She had met him once at dinner, charming, friendly, always deferring to Vittorio, yet with eyes that ceaselessly calculated. "Thank you, Daniel," Vittorio said quietly. "You've been very helpful." "What happens to me now?" Daniel whimpered. "You go to the police. You confess to conspiracy, to feeding information to criminals, to everything you've done." Vittorio's voice was like ice. "And you pray that keeping you alive sends a better message than killing you would." Marco seized Daniel's arm, hauling him to his feet. As they moved toward a different exit, Daniel's wild eyes found the crack in the door, and Mara standing there. "Mara!" he screamed, Mara, please tell them. Tell them I didn't mean. Get him out of here, Vittorio commanded. They dragged Daniel away, his pleas echoing off the concrete walls until a door slammed shut, plunging the basement into silence once more. Mara stood frozen, her mind racing. Lorenzo Romano, Vittorio's own cousin. He had manipulated Daniel, choreographed the restaurant encounter, and likely fed information about the gala to the Kozlovs. All for what? Jealousy? Ambition? She backed away from the door, a sudden desperation to get upstairs before anyone realized she had been listening. But she had only managed 3 steps when Vittorio appeared at the top of the basement stairs. He saw her, and instantly knew she had heard everything. "How much?" he asked quietly. "All of it." Her voice, surprisingly, came out steadier than she felt. "Your cousin?" She knew that this man had engineered the whole perilous scheme. Vittorio ascended the remaining steps, his expression unreadable. "I suspected, but suspicion is not proof. And now you have proof, because of you." He stopped directly in front of her. "If you hadn't sat on my lap that night, Lorenzo's plan would have remained hidden. He would have continued to feed information, continued to destabilize my control, until he was ready to make his move." Mara's legs felt weak. "I didn't mean to. I was just trying to escape Daniel. I didn't know." "You couldn't have known, but you did it anyway." One desperate choice that unraveled years of careful planning. Something akin to admiration flickered across his face. "My cousin believes he is clever, patient. But he failed to account for chaos, for a woman brave enough to sit on a stranger's lap and ask for help. What happens now? Now?" Vittorio's expression hardened. "Now I confront him, family or not, betrayal is betrayal. Will you?" She couldn't bring herself to voice the question. "Kill him?" Vittorio studied her face. "Does the answer matter to you?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I need to know if the man who saved me is still the man who spoke of power and protection in the garden." Mara met his intense gaze. "Or if he's just another Daniel, another man who solves problems with violence." Vittorio remained silent for a long moment. Then, "Lorenzo will live, but he will leave Chicago, leave the family, leave everything he tried to take from me." His voice softened almost imperceptibly. "I am not Daniel, Mara, and I am not my father. Violence is a tool, not a solution." A wave of profound relief washed over her. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. This isn't mercy, it's strategy." But his eyes conveyed a different message entirely. "Come with me. I want you there when I confront him." "Why?" "Because you are the reason we uncovered him. You deserve to see this concluded." They found Lorenzo in the study, reviewing documents with Enzo. The consigliere looked up sharply as they entered, immediately sensing the palpable tension in Vittorio's posture. "Enzo," Vittorio commanded, his voice firm, "leave us." Lorenzo's departure, a silent closing of the door, brought a smile to Vittorio's lips, though it failed to reach his eyes. "Cousin, Miss Santos, to what do I owe this pleasure?" he inquired. "Daniel Chan is in custody," Vittorio stated plainly. "He divulged everything about his Uncle Thomas and the person Thomas worked for." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "About you, Lorenzo." The smile vanished from Lorenzo's face. "That's preposterous. Why would I—" "Don't!" Vittorio's voice cracked like a whip. "Don't insult me with falsehoods. For months you've been undermining me, feeding information to the Kozlovs, orchestrating ambushes, using Mara's former boyfriend as your pawn." Lorenzo's features contorted into a grotesque mask. "You don't merit this position. Father should have bestowed the family upon me. I possess greater intellect, more strategic acumen. You are a traitor." Vittorio's calm demeanor was more chilling than any outburst of fury. "And your time here is concluded. Pack your belongings. You have precisely 24 hours to vacate Chicago. Should I ever glimpse you again, your strategy will offer no salvation." Lorenzo's gaze flickered with tomorrow. Hatred blazed in his eyes. "This is because of her, that little—" "Finish that sentence," Vittorio said softly, "and you won't survive the 24 hours. Lorenzo snatched his coat and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Mara exhaled, a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. It was over. The betrayer was exposed. Daniel was finished. And, against all odds, she was still standing. "Are you all right?" Vittorio asked. "I believe so," she replied, meeting his gaze. What transpires now? Now? He offered a faint smile. Now we rebuild. Together. Together, partners. Mara nodded. Together. Lorenzo Romano did not leave Chicago. He attempted to, reaching the airport with 2 suitcases and a one-way ticket to Miami. However, the Kozlo family, enraged that their inside source had been revealed and severed, located him first. They left his corpse in an alleyway 3 blocks from his apartment, a stark message to anyone who believed playing both sides was a smart move. Vittorio received the news with a solitary nod and no discernible emotion. Family does not excuse betrayal, he informed his assembled lieutenants. Remember that. Yet Mara, standing at the back of the room where these meetings now included her, observed the tension around his eyes, the way he poured a drink that night and stared at it for 10 minutes without taking a sip. Lorenzo had been family, and now he was gone. The household underwent an immediate transformation. Mrs. Chun, who had been relaying information to Lorenzo through coded messages, was quietly dismissed with a severance package and a stern warning never to return. The guard Dominic vanished the same day. Whether he was merely fired or met a more permanent end, Mara did not inquire. New security protocols were implemented, and unfamiliar faces appeared among the guards. Through it all, people regarded Mara differently. The cold shoulders and averted gazes in the hallways were gone. When she entered a room, conversations didn't cease. They respectfully paused and included her. Maria began teaching her how to prepare fresh pasta, chattering about her grandchildren as Mara's hands learned to work the dough. The guards offered greetings by name. Even Enzo, perennially suspicious Enzo, sought her opinion during a security briefing regarding staff communication monitoring. "You observe things," he simply stated. "We should utilize that." She was no longer a guest. She wasn't merely protected. She was an integral part of the household. 3 days after Lorenzo's demise, Mara found herself in the library, a room she had discovered on the 2nd floor, filled with leather-bound books and comfortable chairs. She was engrossed in a book when Vittorio appeared in the doorway. "May I?" he asked. "It's your house. It's your space. There's a distinction." He settled into the chair opposite her, looking weary. "Can't sleep. Too much quiet. I'm accustomed to sirens and neighbors bickering through thin walls." She closed her book. "Too much noise up here?" He tapped his temple. "Can't switch it off." They sat in companionable silence for a moment. Then Mara asked, "Do you regret it?" "What happened to Lorenzo?" "I regret that it was necessary, that he made choices that led to it." Vittorio's voice was subdued. "We grew up together. He taught me to ride a bike. I was supposed to be the best man at his wedding. What happened? My father died, left everything to me instead of him." Lorenzo was older, thought he deserved it more. He gazed at the empty fireplace. Perhaps he did. In many ways, he was smarter, more strategic. But my father understood Lorenzo lacked something essential. What? Loyalty? The capacity to prioritize family above ambition. Vittorio looked at her. "You possess that. You protected me at the gala, even though you barely knew me. Even though fleeing would have been safer. Running wasn't an option, we were in it together." Exactly. Lorenzo never understood together. Only ahead. He was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry you were drawn into this, into our family's dysfunction." "I drew myself into it," Mara smiled faintly. "Remember? I sat on your lap. Best worst decision either of us ever made." They laughed, a genuine laughter that released some of the tension both had been carrying. "May I ask you something?" Vittorio said after the laughter subsided. "That night at Aurelio's, when Daniel had you cornered, why didn't you simply leave?" Mara considered the question. "Because I had been leaving for 3 years. Every fight, every insult, every time he made me feel insignificant, I left inside my head. I became someone smaller, quieter, less. That night, I was done leaving. I wanted to stay, to stand up, even if it meant sitting on a stranger's lap to do it. That takes courage or stupidity. I'm still not certain which. Both. The best decisions usually are." He leaned forward. "What will you do after this is over? After it's safe?" The question caught her off guard. She had been so consumed with surviving each day that she hadn't contemplated after. "I don't know. Find a new job, I suppose. a new apartment, start over. You could stay. Her heart skipped a beat. As what? Your employee? As you, Mara Santos, who observes things, who doesn't back down from Enzo, who tells terrible jokes when she's anxious, and helps Maria in the kitchen even though she doesn't have to. His dark eyes met hers. Stay because this place is improved with you in it. Vittorio, I'm not requesting anything except your presence. No obligations, no expectations. He stood, moving to the window. My entire life, I've been surrounded by people who desire something from me. Power, money, protection, connection. You are the first person in years who simply wishes to be safe. It's refreshing. Mara joined him at the window, gazing out at the garden where they had talked that night. I'm not that noble. I do want things. Like what? To feel as though I belong somewhere. To not awaken in fear. To matter. She glanced at him. To be someone's partner, not their property. You already are. His voice was soft. You've been my partner since you saved my life at the gala, perhaps even before that, since you trusted me enough to ask for help. They stood there in the quiet library, the space between them charged yet comfortable. Not passion, not yet, but something deeper. Understanding, trust, the bedrock upon which passion could build, given time. My mother used to say that family isn't about blood, Vittorio said quietly. It's about who stands beside you when the world burns. Lorenzo was blood, but he walked away. You're not blood, but you stood firm. I didn't have much choice. You had every choice. You could have run at any point, gone to the police, sought witness protection, disappeared. He turned to face her fully. But you stayed. You helped. You became essential. Is that what I am? Essential? He paused, searching for words. You're the reason I recall why I do this, why I protect people, why power should serve something beyond itself. His hand lifted, almost touching her face before he caught himself and lowered it. You're important, Mara, not because of what you can do for me, but because of who you are. Tears pricked Mara's eyes. After years of Daniel telling her she was worthless, difficult, too much, hearing that she mattered simply by existing felt like drawing breath after drowning. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For seeing me, the real me, not the desperate girl from the restaurant, or the woman who needed saving, just me. That's the only you I've ever seen. They remained in the library until dawn, began painting the sky pink, discussing everything and nothing, his childhood and hers, fears and hopes, and the strange path that had brought them together. When they finally retired to their separate rooms, something had shifted again. Not into romance, not yet, but into something even more dangerous. Love that was earned, not demanded. Built on trust, not control. The kind of love that could survive anything because it already had. The attack came 3 nights later, at 2 o'clock in the morning, when the household was at its quietest. Mara was in her room, actually sleeping for once, when the first explosion rocked the villa. She bolted upright, heart pounding, as alarms shrieked through the halls. Gunfire close, too close. She grabbed her phone and dashed into the hallway in her pajamas. Other doors were opening, guards emerging, weapons drawn. Maria stumbled out of her room, eyes wide with fear. "What's happening?" the cook gasped. "Stay in your room," one of the guards ordered, rushing past towards the stairs. But Mara's mind was already racing. The explosion had originated from the south side, the main entrance. If they breached there, they would push towards the center of the villa, towards Vittorio's study, where he had been working late with Enzo. More gunfire, shouting from below. The attackers were inside. Mara seized Maria's arm. "The eastern wing. Is there a way to seal it off?" "What? I don't—" The security briefing last week, Marco mentioned the eastern wing has reinforced doors. Fire protocols. Mara was pulling Maria towards the stairs. "We can lock it down. Keep them from reaching the west side. I'm a cook, Nada. You've been here 20 years. You know this house better than anyone." They arrived downstairs to utter pandemonium. Guards exchanged gunfire with intruders who had forced entry through the shattered main door. "Can we seal the eastern wing?" Maria's fear sharpened into resolve. "Yes, the library has a master control panel, but you need to show me now." They raced down the corridor, bullets ripping through the walls below. 2 more staff members emerged, young guards, Tony and Vincent, whom Mara recognized from their kitchen duties. "You two," Mara yelled, "with us. Miss Santos, you should—" "I know the protocols. I know their target." She gestured towards the eastern corridor. "We'll lock down this wing, cutting off their access to the study. This will buy Marco's team time." Tony and Vincent exchanged quick glances and nodded, falling in behind Mara and Maria as they sprinted to the library. The master panel was concealed behind a painting. Of course it was. Maria's trembling hands punched in a code, and the panel swung open, revealing controls for all doors, gates, and security shutters across the eastern wing. "How do we—" Vincent began. Mara's fingers flew across the touchscreen. 3 weeks of observing Marco's drills, of attending security briefings, of paying attention when everyone assumed she was merely a guest. Eastern corridor doors first, then stairwell access. Heavy steel doors began to drop into place at critical choke points throughout the wing. Through the window, Mara spotted muzzle flashes in the garden, more attackers attempting to flank their position. "They're targeting the side entrance," she announced. "Maria, can we lock down the eastern courtyard door?" "Yes, but some staff are still out there." "Do it! Anyone still outside knows to head for the panic room, right?" Mara hoped this was true. She activated the courtyard lockdown. A massive gate slammed shut across the side entrance just as 3 masked figures attempted to breach it. "They're caught between our main guards and the eastern defenses," Tony noted, checking his weapon. "Smart, not smart, just observant." Mara watched screens displaying various camera angles. The attackers were being funneled into kill zones where Marco's team held a distinct advantage. "How do we assist the main team here?" Vincent asked, pointing to another control. "Backup lighting. If we disable it in sections, we can disorient them in the main corridor." "Do it!" The villa plunged into a strategic darkness, localized to confuse intruders. The guards knew the layout. The attackers did not. Gunfire intensified briefly, then began to recede. Orders were screamed retreat commands. "They're pulling back," Maria whispered. Mara's phone buzzed. "Marco, status. Eastern wing locked down. All staff secured. Attackers contained to main corridor. Good work. Stay where you are." 10 minutes later, it was over. Police sirens wailed in the distance. The gunfire ceased. Guards systematically moved through the villa, checking rooms, securing the perimeter. Vittorio appeared in the library doorway, smoke-stained and furious, yet unharmed. His eyes immediately found Mara, scanning her for injuries. "You locked down the eastern wing," he stated. "Yes." "Kept them from flanking our position in the study." "Yes." He moved closer, noting her pajamas, her bare feet, Maria standing behind her with Tony and Vincent. "You took charge, led the staff, used the security protocols." "I've been paying attention," Mara said simply. Something shifted in his expression, transitioning from fury to relief, then to something deeper. Pride. "Perhaps you saved us again." "We saved each other. That's what partners do." Marco entered, holstering his weapon. "All clear, boss. 6 hostiles down, 3 captured. They were Kozlov's remaining muscle, a last desperate push." "Because Lorenzo's dead, and they've lost their inside advantage," Enzo added, appearing behind Marco. He looked at Mara. "So they resorted to brute force. It would have worked if someone hadn't locked down half the villa and funneled them into our crossfire." All eyes turned to Mara. "I just did what made sense," she offered. "You did what a member of this family does," Vittorio corrected. "You protected your own." "Your own, not just his people. Hers, too." Maria squeezed her shoulder. "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen." "Or the stupidest," Mara remarked, though a smile played on her lips. "Both," Vittorio affirmed, echoing their earlier library conversation. "The best decisions usually are." As dawn broke over the estate, the damage assessment began. Shattered windows, bullet holes piercing walls, the main door utterly destroyed. Repairs would take weeks. Yet, everyone was alive, and the threat had finally passed. Mara stood in the garden, still in her pajamas, watching the sunrise when Vittorio found her. "You should rest," he suggested. "I'm too wired. Ask me again in 6 hours." He stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders nearly brushed. "Tonight proves something. That we need better doors. That you're not here because you need protection. You're here because you belong." He turned to face her. "This is your home now, Mara, if you want it to be home." The words enveloped her like a warm blanket, not a safe house, not a temporary shelter. Home. I want it to be, she said softly. But what does that mean? What am I exactly? You're... Vittorio paused, choosing his words carefully. You're the woman who walked into my life uninvited and refused to leave, who saw past the power to the person, who stands with me, not behind me. His hand found hers. You're mine, if you'll have me. Mara's breath hitched. I'm yours, and I'm yours, equal partners. His thumb stroked her knuckles. I'm not asking you to be my wife, or my girlfriend, or any label you're not ready for. I'm asking you to stay, to build something here with me. She looked at their joined hands, reflecting on the journey from that desperate moment at Aurelio's to this tranquil garden at dawn, how fear had blossomed into trust, how protection had evolved into partnership, how mere survival had transformed into something perilously close to love. Yes, she said, I'll stay. Vittorio pulled her close, and Mara allowed herself to sink into his warmth. Safe, valued, home. The household began to stir inside. Repairs commencing, breakfast being prepared, life moving forward. And Mara was an integral part of it all. No longer a guest, no longer merely protected. She was family. 2 weeks after the attack, the Romano estate appeared almost normal again. New windows gleamed in their frames. Fresh paint concealed the bullet holes. The main entrance had been rebuilt with steel-reinforced doors that were both elegant and capable of withstanding a small army. Workers completed the final repairs, while life within the villa resumed its rhythm. Mara stood in the garden, precisely where she had accepted Vittorio's offer to stay. But daylight lent clarity, making everything appear different, more real. The contractors say we'll be done by Friday, Vittorio said, joining her. He had been in meetings all morning with insurance adjusters and security consultants. Everything back to normal. Normal? Mara repeated. Is anything about this place normal? Fair point. He paused thoughtfully. I need to talk to you about something. Her stomach tightened. That sounds serious. It is. He turned to face her fully. The threat's over. Lorenzo's gone. The Kozlovs are scattered. Daniel's facing federal charges. You're safe now. Completely safe. Okay. Which means you don't owe me anything, he said carefully, as if rehearsed. That first night, I said you'd leave with me. You did, but that was survival. This is different. This is choice. Mara's heart pounded. What are you saying? I'm saying you're free to go. No obligations, no debts. His dark eyes held hers. I'll arrange anything you need. A new apartment, a new job, security if you want it. You can walk away from all this. From me. She should have anticipated this. Should have known that, eventually, he would offer her an exit. Yet, hearing it still felt like the ground shifting beneath her feet. You want me to leave? She asked quietly. No. The word came out harsh, honest. But I want you to stay because you choose to. Not because you're afraid, or grateful, or trapped. He stepped closer. You've spent years with someone who wouldn't let you leave. I won't be that person. Not ever. Mara surveyed the garden, the villa rising behind them, with its ancient stone and new windows. Maria was visible through the kitchen window, kneading dough. Marco walked the perimeter with 2 guards, professional and alert. 2 weeks ago, this place had been a fortress, a cage, somewhere she'd been brought for protection, surrounded by people who mistrusted her. Now it was the kitchen where she learned to make pasta, the library where she and Vittorio talked until dawn, the security office where her observations mattered, the dinner table where Enzo asked her opinion and actually listened. It was home. I don't owe you anything, she said slowly. You're right about that. Vittorio's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment, perhaps, or resignation. But I'm not staying because I owe you, Mara smiled. I'm staying because this is where I want to be, where my instincts matter, where I matter. She moved closer to him. You asked me what I wanted that night in the library, remember? To belong somewhere, to not wake up afraid, to be someone's partner, not their property. I have all of that here, with you. She took his hand. So, no, I'm not leaving. Not because you rescued me, but because we rescued each other. The tension in Vittorio's shoulders visibly eased. You sure? Completely. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her in a way that felt nothing like possession and everything like home. They stood there in the garden, the autumn sun warm on their faces, until Maria called from the kitchen window, "Dinner in an hour, and you're both helping." That night, the dining room felt different, smaller, more intimate. It was just Mara, Vittorio, Enzo, Marco, and Maria, the core household, the people who had survived everything together. The meal was simple, but absolutely perfect. Maria's pasta, freshly baked bread, and wine from Vittorio's personal reserve created an atmosphere of effortless conversation. Laughter echoed alongside shared stories and ambitious plans for the future. As the dessert course arrived, Vittorio raised his glass. He declared, "To endings and beginnings," his gaze then seeking Mara's, eyes warmly reflecting something dangerously akin to love, and to the woman whose sharp instincts rescued us all. A single, seemingly reckless act, yet so profoundly impactful. Mara, with a smile, lifted her own glass. "Not reckless," she corrected. "Necessary." "Necessary," he reiterated, the word carrying profound weight. Every ordeal, the fear, peril, betrayal, and battles, had been indispensable, guiding them to this precise juncture, to the family they had forged from disarray. They drank, and Maria pressed for second helpings, while Enzo unexpectedly found himself laughing at one of Marco's dreadful jokes. The evening lengthened into a comfortable and warm night. Much later, after everyone had retired for the night, Mara and Victoria found themselves in the library. Her feet were tucked beneath her on the sofa, while his arm rested along the back, not quite touching her, yet near enough for her to sense his warmth. "What happens next?" she inquired softly. "Now we live," he responded with an air of profound simplicity, as if it were the easiest undertaking in the world. "We rebuild, we thrive, we confront whatever challenges arise. Together, together," she echoed. He turned his head to meet her gaze. "Always together." Mara leaned into him, comforted by the steady rhythm of his heartbeat and the gentle rise and fall of his breathing. Outside, the estate was cloaked in a quiet, peaceful, and secure silence. She mused about the young woman who, just 2 weeks prior, had desperately and fearfully taken a seat on a stranger's lap. That girl had been seeking sanctuary, yearning for a savior. What she found, however, surpassed her expectations. She discovered herself, her latent strength, and her intrinsic worth, and she found a companion who recognized all of it, choosing to stand not ahead or behind her, but resolutely beside her, as equals, as partners, as family. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" he asked. "For truly seeing me, for granting me a choice, for allowing me to stay." Vittorio's hand sought hers in the dimness, their fingers intertwining, as if this connection had been forged 1,000 times before and would be 1,000 times again. "Thank you for sitting on my lap," he said, a smile evident in his voice. Mara chuckled, a real, uninhibited laugh that tasted of freedom. "The best worst decision I ever made." "The best worst decision we both made," he corrected. They remained there as the fire dwindled to embers and the night deepened, awaiting a new mafia dawn, ushered in by the woman whose singular act of desperation had transformed everything, not merely his possession nor his obligation, but his partner, his equal, his home. And in that moment, she was precisely where she belonged.